Something extraordinary happened today. Something the world once laughed at, doubted, and dismissed as impossible has now become reality. The screens that rule the financial world, the ones in New York, London, Dubai, and Singapore, all just flashed a message that changed history. The Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong are finally live on the global Forex market. For years, millions believed this day would come. Others called it a myth, a dream for the hopeful. But this morning, that dream became fact. History was made, and the financial world will never look the same again. Today, we're witnessing not just a currency event, but the rebirth of nations, the rewriting of global economics, and the awakening of long silenced believers. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear will be remembered for generations. When the first whispers began in the early hours of the morning, few took them seriously. Traders in London noticed unusual activity, minor currency pairs, flickering with movements that didn't fit any pattern. The IQD-USD pair, long absent from screens, appeared for a split second on private terminals. At first, analysts thought it was a system glitch. But then, the Vietnamese dong followed, flashing in sequence. The silence that filled trading rooms was the kind that only happens before history unfolds. Within minutes, phones began ringing, chat rooms erupted, and experienced brokers froze in disbelief. Was this real? Could it be happening? By 4:15 a.m. GMT, confirmation started to pour in. The Central Bank of Iraq had reinstated its currency on the international stage. Moments later, Vietnam joined, completing the first dual reinstatement in modern history. Across time zones, shockwaves spread. In Washington, analysts scrambled for clarity. Treasury officials, the IMF, and top banking executives entered emergency coordination calls. One insider described it as controlled urgency. Screens updated in real time and global. Traders saw what they had waited decades to see live, moving rates for the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong. At exactly 4:37 a.m. Eastern Time, the rates became visible on public Forex platforms. The dinar surged to 3.91 per US dollar equivalent, while the dong adjusted to 0.47. It was official. Both currencies were back, alive, and internationally recognized. The reaction was explosive. Currency forums crashed under traffic. Telegram channels buzzed with disbelief. On social media, hashtags like number IQD reinstated and number VND live rate trended within minutes. In Dubai and Singapore, high net worth investors moved fast, repositioning portfolios. In Baghdad, the news spread like wildfire. Banks that had been quietly preparing for weeks opened their doors. People lined the streets holding old dinar notes that had been kept for decades. Some smiled, others cried. One man outside a bank said, "We were told this day would come. We didn't stop believing." It was more than financial. It was emotional, deeply human. A nation that had endured war, sanctions, and instability finally saw its currency rise again. Meanwhile, Vietnam moved with precise coordination. The State Bank of Vietnam confirmed its alignment with international markets. Citizens filled the streets in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, waiting outside banks to exchange their notes. Officials reassured everyone that their savings were safe and that the transition would be smooth. This was not chaos. It was carefully planned reform. Vietnam's statement called the move a return to true economic value, and for the first time in decades, the dong reflected the real power of its growing economy. The message was clear: Vietnam was stepping onto the world stage as an equal partner. Behind the scenes, global systems raced to keep up. Major institutions like Chase, HSBC, and Deutsche Bank activated Project Phoenix, a confidential program designed to manage dormant currencies returning to active trade. Few outside the financial world knew such a mechanism even existed. Under IMF supervision, this protocol helped stabilize liquidity and prevent shocks to the dollar-based system. For years, it had been quietly tested, waiting for this very day. When it launched, traders around the world knew this was no accident. It was a carefully timed, globally coordinated reset. The global impact was immediate. Analysts began calling it the dawn of a new financial era. For decades, the US dollar and euro dominated trade. But now, new players had entered the field. Iraq's reinstatement represented more than value, it symbolized sovereignty. A country that had been through rebuilding and reform was now declaring its financial independence. Vietnam's rise marked Southeast Asia's economic awakening, a moment long overdue. Together, these two currencies stood as proof that global power was shifting not through war, but through wealth. In US banks, the scene was organized chaos. Private clients holding large positions in IQD and VND were quietly contacted. Appointments were booked for currency conversions under high security. Special rate codes, previously reserved for institutional investors, were activated. Some exchange centers in Texas, Florida, and Nevada opened early. Surveillance was tight, lines were long, and emotions ran high. People who had waited for years were finally walking into banks with notes once mocked as worthless, now worth fortunes. One veteran Forex analyst described it best. It's like watching a dam burst after years of pressure. Everything changes now: liquidity flows, currency ratios, even trade balances. In Zurich, Geneva, and Hong Kong, private bankers were flooded with calls. Everyone wanted verification, everyone wanted in. By midday, the IMF released a brief statement confirming the reinstatement, calling it a milestone of historical significance. It praised both nations for meeting compliance standards, signaling their readiness for open global trade. What many didn't realize is how long this had been in motion. Insiders revealed that secret testing began weeks earlier. Simulated environments ran through every possible market scenario to prevent crashes. Selected banks worldwide received encrypted alerts. Even SWIFT, the global payment network, quietly updated its systems days before the public announcement. Everything was orchestrated with precision. The message was simple: this was not chaos, it was control. While celebrations filled Baghdad and Hanoi, cautious discussions unfolded in Washington, London, and Beijing. Some economists worried that rapid revaluation could disrupt trade balances. Others believed it was the beginning of long-term stability. One thing was certain: the system was evolving. The markets were now more multipolar, more balanced, and far less predictable. The rise of the dinar and dong sent a message: power in the financial world was no longer one-sided. Across the Middle East, joy turned into national pride. The Central Bank of Iraq released a statement honoring the resilience of its people and their faith in the future. "Our currency stands strong again," it declared. In the streets, flags waved. For many, this wasn't just about money, it was about dignity. The dinar had once been a symbol of suffering. Now it represented strength and renewal. Citizens celebrated not only a financial victory, but a spiritual one. In Vietnam, officials echoed the same sentiment. "We have entered a new age," said one spokesperson. "A strong Vietnam is good for the world." Banks operated around the clock, ensuring every citizen was included. Young people took selfies holding their new notes, while older citizens watched with quiet pride. The dong was more than currency, it was proof that patience, progress, and planning had paid off. Financial centers across the globe adjusted rapidly. The London Stock Exchange saw massive jumps in companies connected to Iraq's oil and infrastructure. In Tokyo, Vietnamese manufacturing firms rose over 20% in a single session. Gold and oil markets became volatile, swinging as traders recalculated values. What started as a quiet currency reinstatement turned into a global financial storm, one driven not by fear, but by transformation. Inside the U.S. Treasury, unconfirmed reports spoke of an emergency coordination meeting. Officials worked to shape the global narrative, preventing panic and ensuring calm. One analyst described it as managing perception. Rather than deny or delay, they allowed the news to flow naturally. Confidence, not confusion, was their goal. The world was entering a new monetary chapter, and stability was the word of the day. On social media, emotions ran wild. People shared photos of old dinar notes kept in drawers for years. Families celebrated together, many saying this day changed their future. One post read, "Everyone laughed when I bought those notes, now they're calling me." Another wrote, "Faith won." We held on when it was hardest. For countless believers around the world, this was more than profit, it was validation. In the United States, special exchange centers operated under high security. Some reports suggested NDAs were offered to certain participants, particularly at private exchanges. Others hinted at contract rates available for pre-approved clients. Though details remained unclear, one thing was certain: the process was happening in real time. This was no longer theory, it was unfolding hour by hour. Meanwhile, in Iraq, the prime minister addressed the nation. His words echoed through every home. The Iraqi dinar stands once more as a symbol of our sovereignty, our strength, and our future. Crowds cheered, fireworks lit the sky. After years of war and uncertainty, Iraq was taking back control of its destiny. The moment was historic, emotional, and unifying. Vietnam's government delivered its own message: calm, proud, and firm. "This is the rise of a strong Vietnam," said one official. "We are proud to join the world's financial stage." Citizens were urged to avoid panic, to trust the system, and to hold their faith in the process, and they did. For Vietnam, this was not just economic growth, it was global recognition. The IMF later called the event a global equalizer. Analysts said it could be the first step toward a more balanced world economy, one where natural resources, production, and people mattered more than speculation. Iraq and Vietnam had both been quietly building toward this moment for years. Now, the world was finally catching up. As the hours passed, major banks across the U.S., Europe, and Asia issued new guidance. Forex platforms experienced massive surges. Retail traders rushed in, eager to participate before rates stabilized. Experts warned of volatility, advising caution. But excitement outweighed fear. The world was alive with possibility again. And so, as night fell across Asia, trading screens glowed bright in financial centers worldwide. The whispers that had filled trading rooms hours earlier had become the loudest echo in the global market. It's finally happening. The moment that skeptics mocked had arrived. The currencies once dismissed as worthless were now rewriting the financial map. Today, history turned a page. The dinar and dong have risen from the ashes of doubt into the light of reality. The world of finance just changed, and those who believed, those who waited, were finally proven right. This is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new era. Because when nations rise, currencies don't just move numbers, they move hearts, they move futures, they move the very course of history. And as the first sunrise breaks over Baghdad and Hanoi, one truth is undeniable: the wait is over. The dinar and the dong are back. The world will never be the same again.